Baby, how you feeling? Girl, need to kick off your shoes.
There's something in this room that connects all of us. It's the fact that we're storytellers. Before I got bit by the digital marketing bug, my background was in theater, specifically stage management. This is actually a photo of me stage managing boot camp in 2016. Shout out to Ben at the back, our stage manager, and Rachel. What I love the most about theater and stage management is that I got to tell stories and help other people tell their story. And if you think about it, I'm really doing the same thing now. The only difference is that before, I was telling stories with directors and designers and technicians and actors. And now I get to tell stories with all of you. One might call it an upgrade. Don't tell that to my friends that are on Facebook Live. I told them that this was their chance to understand what I do. So sorry, Jason. Through their actions, users are telling us their own stories. They're telling us what they care about, what they're struggling with. This is an example from Cal Performances. This is their old performance detail page. And in this case, the user was struggling to take a next step. On mobile, users were much less likely to click on that Buy Tickets button than desktop users. When we see things like this, it's our job to do something about it, to take action. Our partners at Cal Performances did just that. When they realized that this was what was happening on their mobile performance detail pages, they made a small change to the page. By pinning that Buy Tickets button to the bottom of the page, they increased clicks on that button by 16%. This is just one of many examples that I'll talk about today about how we can extract more value out of our web analytics. OK, before I get too far and get into the data, let's take a step back and understand why we care about web analytics in the first place. If you think about it, more people visit your website than walk through the doors to your theater or your museum. Even if you sell out every single seat for every performance of your season, or fill your museum to capacity during a really amazing exhibition, more people are coming to your website than walking through your doors. So we have a tremendous opportunity to make an impact here. And I think that we really need to start thinking about our website visitors not as users, but as our online patrons. And it makes sense that we have so much traffic coming to our website because we're spending all of our energy sending them there through social, email, search, even word of mouth. We heard from Eric this morning with evangelism, word of mouth is sending people to the site as well. The problem is all of this work and energy that we're putting into this process really doesn't do much at all if the user is getting to the website and having an awful experience finding what they're looking for. So we know that our websites are super important, but our organizations aren't using data to inform really important decisions about the site. In our most recent benchmark study, only 25% of organizations reported using analytics data at all to inform a website redesign or optimizations, changes to the website. And we know why this is the case. I'm sure you're all aware that you're very busy people. You're wearing lots of different hats. And on top of that, platforms like Google Analytics are complex. They make you want to bang your head against the wall sometimes, and we don't always have the time for that. Today, we are going to build an analytics appetite. Yes, we have another metaphor about a pie. Sarah, we need to meet after this and share a pie, I guess. My team at Capacity Interactive knows that I love metaphors, so I had to throw one in here. Another one of my passions beyond metaphors and theater and data analytics is baking. I love baking. I think it's a labor of love. It takes a lot of time and intensity. It takes busting through a New York City grocery store and having to fight people to get the ingredients that I want. But the thing that gets me through with baking is the fact that at the end of the day, I have a beautiful, delicious pie to pull out of the oven and share with my family and friends. And this is the same thing for website analytics, believe it or not. It's just like making and eating a pie, I promise. With website analytics, it takes a lot for us to put the tracking in place that we need to let that data bake and collect in our accounts, and then ultimately before we get to the end result. But I'm hoping to solve this for you today. Today, I'm hoping to solve this issue that we don't know what our web analytics can give us. We don't know the value that it can bring. We're going to be walking through several case studies from other organizations about how they've extracted value out of their website analytics. At the end, we'll also have a couple of actions and things that you should really do when you go back to your desk. Okay, setting expectations. Today, we will not walk through the step-by-step to each recipe. Maybe one day we'll have a week-long masterclass where we could do it all, but today is not that day. So even though we're not going to be walking through every single step we took to get to the end result, we have tons of resources online. Right after this presentation, Yosef is going to be sharing out a PDF that links you to lots of resources on our website and other resources where you can actually take some action within the platforms themselves. Okay. We're also going to be sharing the ingredients to each of these examples that I'm going to be sharing today through what I'm calling the Web Analyst Toolkit. On all of the slides that you'll see, you're going to see these little flags show up in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. It'll include things like what platforms were used, how often we were doing these analyses, a level, so there should be something for everyone, no matter where you are right now. Customization, so many of these platforms need to be customized to your specific organization and your website. So we'll kind of hint you into what customizations you really need to put in place in order to do similar analyses that we'll share. In order to make all of this a little bit more digestible, I like to think of website analytics in 3 different levels. The first level is awareness. Awareness is all about monitoring things about our website on a regular basis. Insight is where we go a little bit deeper. We put on our best analyst hat, and we ask questions about what the user's actually doing on the site. We really try to uncover gold in this area of website analytics. And then the last level is about action. This is where we take what we learned in the awareness and insight levels, and we actually do something about it, whether that's through A/B testing or user testing, a website redesign, or something else. So we'll start with awareness. All of the examples today will be structured into one of these 3 levels. So what should we be monitoring on our website? The first thing that you need to do is get specific about your website's goals. You need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of my website? Why does it exist? And the important thing about doing this is the fact that there's so much data at our disposal. We know that you don't have time to be looking at all of it every single day. So think about the things that really matter to you. Literally write them down, collaborate with your colleagues to build these together. From there, you can build a dashboard to represent only that data. This is a dashboard that we built for Strat Center for the Performing Arts. For the Strat Center, they had 2 main goals for their website. The first was to drive ticket sales and revenue, and the second was to engage and educate. These might resonate with some other people in the audience as well. So we put these goals and represented them in the dashboard with data from Google Analytics. We looked at things like what percentage of people on the website were purchasing, what are trends with revenue, what are top products being purchased on the website. And then we could look at other objectives too, like to engage and educate. How many people are viewing the education section? How many people are buying field trip tickets? What are the top pages in each of these sections? To build a dashboard like this, we use a platform called Google Data Studio, which is a relatively new and free, that's again, free platform. I try not to pick favorites between my platforms, but if I had to pick one, I think this would be it. It's a really great platform. You can connect to Google Analytics and many other data sources as well to just really easily, quickly visualize your data, and then automate it to send to your email on a regular basis. On a weekly basis, you should also be keeping an eye out for red flags, things that might go wrong on your website or with your analytics tracking. This is a dashboard from Seattle Rep. And we saw in this dashboard that on September 24th, their revenue tracking went down. You see that graph? The line went all the way down. So we were able to catch this really quickly and easily and make sure that that tracking was fixed and still in place. We could go one step further and add custom alerts in Google Analytics. I know, as much as I would like it, I know that everyone in this room is going to be sitting in front of their computer and watching the screen, waiting for a metric to change so you could do something about it. I know that you're very busy. So take advantage of the tools at your disposal. In Google Analytics, you could set up a custom alert to have them email you when an important metric, whether that's conversion rate or bounce rate, sessions, crosses some sort of unusual threshold. Also, manage your campaign success. In this dashboard for Mayo Performing Arts, we manage things like what channels are bringing people to the website, what percentage of people coming to the site through a campaign link are viewing event detail pages. We also built this snazzy funnel where you can click on a specific campaign. So here I'm clicking on an email. And then you can see where people are actually dropping off in the purchase funnel. So how many people saw your event detail pages? How many saw the shopping cart? How many went on to delivery? And then how many actually purchased? Things like drop-off rates are normal. Everyone in this room has drop-off on your purchase path. But the important thing about this is that now we're aware of it, and we could do something about it. After any big website change or initiative, you should also be monitoring things that might go wrong. There will be things that go wrong, so we should be looking out for them. For Seattle Rep, we built this dashboard where we could look at top 404 pages, so page not found pages, JavaScript errors, bounce rates for top landing pages, load time, how our organic search was performing. So lots of different things we can monitor to make sure that something like a website redesign is going smoothly. So these are just a couple of examples of things that we can monitor. The through line throughout all of these is that we're taking tons of data and we're narrowing down the scope to things that matter to us in specific moments. OK, insight. This is kind of the stereotypical web analyst section of website analytics. This is where we go beyond that awareness stage and we dig deeper to uncover trends. I think that this is an area of website analytics that could be paralyzing to people. We don't know where to start. My advice to you is to adopt a mindset of data curiosity. This is my favorite poster in our office. Ask more questions. And you should do just that. Start by putting yourself in the user's shoes and ask questions. Once you start asking questions about what your user's experience is, I promise the data is going to grab right onto you and drag you deeper and deeper down until you can't get out. I've been there. One great place to start is to know who you're designing for. Google Analytics can tell us a lot about who your users are off the bat. It could tell us what devices they're using, where they're located geographically, their demographics, whether they're new to the site or returning. And it's important for us to understand who our users are before we dig into further analyses. This information will help inform the further things that we'll look at down the line. Google Analytics can tell us a ton, but it's unfortunately not a mind reader. And it's important for us to also know why our visitors are coming to the site. To answer that question, we can expand our horizon and use other tools like Hotjar, Hotjar. Through Hotjar, we added this embedded poll onto Detroit Symphony Orchestra's site. We just asked visitors, what is your purpose for visiting the website today? Why are you here? And once we did that, we can analyze the data. On the left-hand side, we see that 64% of organizations came to the website to learn more about upcoming performances. And we can see those answers reflected in our Google Analytics data as well. The majority of visitors coming to the site we're viewing the show section and ticketing pages. We can also take this qualitative data through poll responses in Hotjar and infuse it into Google Analytics. For Ensemble Theater Cincinnati, we took all of the responses, put it into Google Analytics. In this case, we wanted to see if people that said that they came to the site to learn about camps ended up succeeding in their mission to come to the site. And we saw that 63% of people that said they came to the site for camp information ended up viewing an education page. So this was mostly a success, right? The majority of people that came to the site for camp information ended up going to an education page. That does mean that 37% of visitors that came for that information may not have gotten it. So there's still room for improvement, and we should brainstorm ways that we can achieve that. After we learn about who our users are and why they're coming to the site, turn your focus to user behavior. And when you're doing this, start at the beginning of the user journey. For Houston Grand Opera, we saw that 31% of users were starting their journey on the home page. This is the first page that they saw. That means that 69% of visitors were not entering on the home page. I think that this could sometimes be surprising to some people. We could also look at bounce rate to understand how users are engaging with our landing pages. For those that aren't as familiar, bounce rate tells us what percentage of visitors land on a page on the site, only view that one page, and then leave without taking any further action. So it's a great metric for us to understand landing page engagement. And here for Houston Grand Opera, we saw that on the home page, we had a low bounce rate. That's a good thing. It means that users are likely to keep going and take another step. But we saw that the pages deeper on the site, performance detail pages and other pages, had much higher bounce rates, indicating that they weren't as likely to take a next step. So what could we do about this? How could we make our deeper pages on the website engaging and encourage users to keep going on in their journey, just as they do on the homepage? One of the most important aspects about website design is navigation. In a study conducted by HubSpot, 76% of respondents said that the most important aspect of a website's design is easy navigation. Users aren't asking for much. They just want to find what they're looking for. So if we know that navigation is so important, we should be using our data to understand how users are navigating the site. Click-based tracking helps us determine what elements of the website users are interacting with. Here, for Cal Performances, we saw that 24%, almost a quarter of desktop visitors, were clicking on a link up at the top in the navigation. This is where it's important to remember that we need to know who our users are. You need to remember things like looking at this across devices. So here we saw that a good amount of desktop visitors were clicking on a link in the main navigation. But when we looked at this for mobile, only 5% of visitors were clicking on a link in the navigation. And when you come across something like this, you need to ask why. Why is this happening? Why are mobile users not as likely to interact with the navigation as desktop users? In this case, users were not as likely to click a link in the main navigation because the majority of mobile visitors didn't open the mobile navigation in the first place. Only 91% were clicking on that little hamburger menu to open up the navigation. And when we come across something like this, this is gold because we can now experiment and think of new ways that we can change this and improve this experience for users. Maybe we can auto-expose the mobile menu so the top sections that we know users are clicking on show up by default. Or maybe we could try something as simple as adding the word menu next to that hamburger icon. We can go deeper and determine if users are navigating the site at all outside of the main navigation. Now, this analysis that I'm about to walk you through is going to look a little bit like abstract art. So brace yourself and let me be your guide. OK, we're going to walk it through step by step. We'll get through it together. Over here in the y-axis, we're looking at what sections on the website users are entering in. On the x-axis, across the top, going horizontally, we're looking at what sections users later navigate to. So we'll just start with one column. Here we're looking at how likely it is for users to navigate to the About section. So for example, 15% of visitors that enter on the home page, of those people, only 6% navigate to the About section. OK, abstract art. When we look at this for all sections of the website, we can identify trends. We could determine that out of all the sections to the website, users really aren't navigating at all. And if they are navigating, it's most likely going to be to the Performances section or to the ticketing site. And if you think about this, and if you think about your websites, we have so many different sections of the website. We have an About section, a Buy section, a Community section, Homepage, Learn, Support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But users are really focused on just a couple sections of our website. So if this other information that we're spending a lot of our time and energy curating is important to us, we need to make sure that we're either finding ways to get users to those sections, or we're taking that information and we're surfacing it in more heavily trafficked areas of the website. For us to dig a little bit deeper into user behavior, we really need to prioritize. And we can use our data to help us do this. In this situation, if my time is limited, I'm going to focus on my play detail pages. 58% of users are viewing play detail pages on the site. So this is really the place where I have the largest room for opportunity to make an impact. After I prioritize, I could dig deeper and use click-based tracking to kind of build a heat map of the page. Where are users clicking on the page most often? Doing something like this is especially important if you're gearing up for a website redesign or if you want to be making iterative changes to important templates on your site. When the Public Theater was gearing up for their website redesign this past summer, we looked at their play detail pages and saw that of the different interactions that users could take on the page, about a quarter were clicking on a link in the calendar to go and buy tickets. It's a good thing. If they weren't doing that, they really weren't interacting with the page at all. 41% were exiting without taking another step. The funny thing about this template is there was actually a lot more content kind of below this screenshot. If I kept scrolling, I would see videos and reviews, some great content to really engage me and make me want to buy. But no one was clicking on it. No one was engaging with it. So our theory here was that users just weren't scrolling. And we were able to confirm that through custom scroll depth tracking. We saw that only 49% of visitors scrolled to the halfway mark of the page. Now, this is a before and after Queer Eye moment. When the Public Theater launched their new website last month, this is the new version of their play detail page. They took this information that we found into account. They pinned this bar at the top of the page, and they used white space to really indicate to users that there was more to come. They should keep scrolling to see what other content they had on the page. This new page resulted in a 33% increase in users scrolling to the halfway mark of the page. So a huge success. When we're looking for opportunities to improve the site, we should be looking out for areas that signal friction. We talked about friction a lot this morning, and we have a whole lot of friction on our websites. Nothing signals friction more on your website than a user having to hit the back button. We should be avoiding the back button like the plague. If you think about it, if you're on a website, you're going full speed ahead, and then all of a sudden, step on the brakes, you have to hit the back button to go to the previous page because you couldn't find what you were looking for. In website analytics and design, we call this behavior pogo sticking. It describes going from page A to page B, and then immediately back to page A by hitting the back button. On Houston Grand Opera's site, we saw that a quarter of performance detail page visitors were pogo sticking. And specifically, they were most likely to pogo stick, jump between the season listing and a performance detail page. So they were on the season listing, they found an opera that they were interested in, they went to that detail page, and then they went back. There could have been many things that was signaling this behavior, but our strongest theory was that users were looking to browse. They were signaling to us that they wanted to view more. So when we see things like this, we should brainstorm ways that we can remove this friction for our users. And we can look to other organizations for inspiration. In this specific case, maybe adding something like a recommendations module where we recommend other operas or performances that we have going on can make the user's experience better. It can make it so that they could keep going forward rather than having to hit on the brakes and go back. Again, there's a lot of friction that could happen on our site, and sometimes we wish that we could just be a fly on the wall during our users' visits to the site. And luckily, we can be a fly on the wall to our users' visits to the site. Also using Hotjar here, so the same tool that we use for embedded polls on the website, we're able to do screen recordings where we anonymously record real users on the site in order to get a sense of what they're doing, what they're struggling with. And this can really help us uncover trends. In this example from Detroit Symphony Orchestra, a user was looking to buy tickets to this performance, Home Alone. They couldn't figure out a way to buy tickets on the detail page. So they go to the calendar, see maybe they're in the wrong place. They'll start over, try again. And they're back at the detail page. There's nowhere for them to click buy tickets, and they probably feel like the kid in Home Alone. In this specific case, tickets weren't on sale yet, but when we see things like this, it could put a light bulb in our brains and say, okay, we need to do something to fix this. Maybe we could add a button to the page that tells users that tickets aren't on sale yet, but here you go. You could sign up if you want to be notified when they do go on sale. We can also use heat maps in that same tool, Hotjar, to analyze clicks that we might not have had tracked in a tool like Google Analytics. In this example from the Goodman Theater, this is their homepage, we were able to see through our heat map in Hotjar that lots of users were clicking on the button at the bottom of this image here. This is kind of the hero at the top of the page. If users weren't clicking there, a good amount were also clicking directly on the image. The difference between these two actions was that when you clicked on the button, it brought you to the event detail page. But when you clicked on the image, nothing happened. You stayed on the home page, you didn't go anywhere. So this is a huge opportunity, something really easy that we could fix to make the user experience better, to remove that friction. All that Goodman needs to do is link those images to the detail pages. The users are telling us that that's what they want and that's what they expect. At the end of the day, we can also just ask our users how their experience to the site was. Was it a good experience or a bad experience? We could ask them about specific pages on the website. So in this case, we asked Goodman Theater visitors if they, how they would rate their experience on performance detail pages. And we can follow up with unhappy visitors, unsatisfied visitors, and ask them how we can improve. For the Goodman, the majority of users that had an unsatisfactory experience reported that they couldn't find a runtime on the performance detail page, and that's really what they were looking for. The funny thing about this is that the runtime actually was on the event detail page, it's right there circled, but clearly it wasn't obvious enough for the users, they couldn't find it. So maybe we could try something as simple as bolding it or add the words runtime in front of it. The Goodman did the right thing by including this information. Clearly, the users care about it, but now they just need to make it more obvious. For many of us here, the purchase path is super important because it's tied to one of our big goals for the site, for people to buy tickets. For Omaha Performing Arts, we saw that mobile visitors were much less likely to purchase than desktop visitors. Now, I would say that this is very normal. I would even go so far as to bet that every person in this room and on Facebook Live, this is probably the same case for you as well. Mobile users aren't as likely to purchase. Our mobile purchase paths just aren't as strong. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to find opportunities to improve it. For Omaha Performing Arts, we saw that the majority of mobile visitors were dropping off on seat selection. So that's the dark blue line there. 79% were dropping off on the seat map page. So that's where we focused in. We used the data to help us prioritize, and we decided that we wanted to try to improve this. We could use our data to help us hypothesize about why the seat map isn't performing the way that we want it to for mobile visitors. Using click-based tracking, again, custom click-based tracking in Google Analytics, we were able to determine that on average, mobile visitors clicked on 5 seats, even though at the end of their session, they were only purchasing 2 seats on average. So this is kind of weird. Why are mobile visitors clicking on 5 seats when they only go and purchase 2 seats? Our hypothesis here is this had to do with pricing. The way that this page worked was you only got a price for the seat. When you clicked on a seat, it popped up a little box and told you the price of the seat that you clicked on. So we decided to do something about this. And that's where we get to our last level of website analytics action, where we take what we've learned and we do something about it. For Omaha Performing Arts, we ran an A/B test in Google Optimize, another free platform, all free platforms that we're talking about today. In Google Optimize, we were able to send 50% of traffic to the control, the original version of the page, and 50% to the variant, where we changed one thing. All we did is we exposed the mobile pricing legend. It was already on the page. We just exposed it upon the page load so users could see the pricing information right away. And we determined that our hypothesis was correct. This test led to a 9% increase in e-commerce conversion rate and a 23% decrease in those extra clicks on seats that we didn't need users to be doing. This increase in conversion rate might seem small to you, but it's actually huge. That leads to a lot of revenue, and if we could be doing this multiple times a year, that's actually generating a lot of revenue towards our bottom line. In a very customized setup for the public theater, we dug in deeper into the purchase path, and we were able to look at where users were dropping off for a specific show. So here, rather than looking at the whole purchase path, we were looking at where users were dropping off for a bright room called Day. We saw that 58% of visitors were dropping off on the shopping cart, and we were able to determine that that actually equated to over $190,000 in tickets being left in the cart. When we see things like this, we can't let those tickets rot away in the cart. We need to do something about this. And luckily, we can leverage our same analytics infrastructure across advertising platforms like Facebook and Google. Here, we're able to track when users are adding a specific show to the cart, but not buying. And then we can serve them an ad, give them a second chance to come back and buy those tickets. We've seen that this sort of bottom of funnel retargeting is really successful across advertising platforms, and as Eric mentioned this morning, we decided to do something about it for email as well. So we developed a software called Behavior Infuser. We saw this recording for Opera Philly this morning, and we saw the huge success that this led to. It led to over $190,000 in revenue and an ROI of over 750%. We could retarget to people that are abandoning us, invite them to come back. We can also get personal. We talked about the importance of personalization this morning. Why not make our website a personal experience as well? Alvin Ailey has been personalizing in their email strategy. They're able to determine through their CRM what type of visitor someone is. So they have first, these are people that visited them for the first time last season. Lapsed, these are people that have visited in the past but haven't been back in a while. And then finally, we have stalwarts. These are the people that are the most loyal visitors that come and see them time and time again. The problem was they were personalizing an email, but once the user got to the website, everyone had the same experience. And they really wanted to continue that personalization all the way through. So again, here we leveraged Google Optimize, the same platform that we used for A/B testing, to personalize the landing page. All we did is just change the copy a little bit here. So for first, we told them, if you enjoyed us last year, come back again. Stalwarts, we thank them for being loyal patrons. And we can do this for all different sorts of things. You could do it for people on different devices, geographically, so you can personalize for tourists versus in-town guests, and lots of other different things like that. OK, so I could just be up here, keep going all day through all this data until someone takes one of those little hooks and takes me off the stage. But before that happens, let's talk about how you can actually make this happen at your organization. First things first, deep breaths. If you're feeling like this, you're not alone. The important thing to remember here is that this is all a process. What we went through today are just a couple of examples of case studies of how other organizations have done this type of work. You should think about how you can make this specific to you and your organization. Just because you saw that something worked here today for Cal Performances or for Ailey doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work in the exact same way for you. So what should you do to get to this process on your own? The first thing I recommend you do when you get back to your desk is to take stock of your current analytics practices. Go back and look at this presentation, look at the flags in the toolkit here, and ask yourself what's currently in your toolkit. What platforms are you using? How often are you using them? Be honest with yourself and ask if you're using them to their full potential. Build yourself a timeline to really get to the place you want to be. If you're not using Google Analytics, this is the place that you need to start. Google Analytics is really at the center of our website analytics universe. So this is really where you need to start. And we recommend that you start by auditing your Google Analytics account. There's a lot that can go wrong in your account, so we recommend looking at things like if your data is accurate. And then beyond that, look to see what else you can do. What custom elements can you add to your account? So you could do things like build those heat maps or look at scroll depth and lots of the other custom things that we talked about today. You're not alone in this. We know that this could be a daunting task to undertake. So we built a dashboard in Google Data Studio that you all can go to. We'll post it out in the app after this. How this works is basically you open it up in your Google Analytics Google persona login. And you use that filter at the top to select your specific Google Analytics account. And from there, we'll guide you through. We'll walk you through all of the different things you should be looking at and really help you build your list of what you should be prioritizing. While you're in the process of getting together your analytics infrastructure, think about those KPIs. Think about what the purpose is of your website. Literally write down the answers to that question so that you could be a little bit more focused in the things that you should be looking at on a regular basis. And then set aside time to devote to deeper analysis. I know that this could feel like a black hole, but just take it one step at a time. Again, start by asking one question. It'll drag you deeper and deeper down. I like to think of this as time to listen to your patrons. Your patrons are telling us what they're struggling with, what they care about through the data, so listen to them. And through all of this, remember that analytics is a process. It's not something that we could just check off our lists. It's something that we need to commit to and get into a cycle. My ideal world would be if we could all get into a cycle where we're designing our website, we're measuring how it's performing, we're analyzing that data, we're hypothesizing about the data that we see, and then we're designing again with what we learned. The more your organization could go through this cycle every year, the more value you're going to find along the way. OK, 10 takeaways. Our website users are our online patrons. We need to start thinking of them in this way and remember that our website is really important to our digital success. Prioritize where you're going to put your attention. We know that you don't have time to look at all of this all the time, so think about the things that matter most to you and let the data help you prioritize as well. Start small and work your way up. There should be something in this presentation, an example of a case study that we talked about that you could kind of take inspiration from and do for your organization as well. Adopt a data-curious mindset. Ask more questions. One size does not fit all organizations, so just because we saw something worked for one organization doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. Web analysis does not equal only for website redesign. Many organizations wait until a website redesign comes down the line to start thinking about this stuff, and we should be doing this all the time. Again, we should be going through this cycle whether we have a brand new website or not. Quantitative plus qualitative data equals heart eyes emoji. The only thing stronger than quantitative data is quantitative data and qualitative data. Analyze with the goal of taking action. We can't always take action with everything that we find, but when you can, do it. I promise it's going to feel really good. View this as your opportunity to listen to and empathize with your patrons. Again, this is your opportunity to hear from them and do something about what they're struggling with. And finally, you're a storyteller just like I am, and you can do this. Thank you. All right. Hit me with your questions. Wow, there are a lot of you. Can't see you as well in the dark.
Back to the slide you had about personalizing those landing pages. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Did you create a different landing page for each different audience? And how does that live just on the website if you were to go to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Google Optimize is a tool that kind of is like a choose your own adventure. Like you can kind of edit it just the same way that you would like the back end of your website. It's like a WYSIWYG type of editor. So we create the different versions through there and then kind of release them in that way. It's the same thing with A/B testing. So when we're A/B testing, you have like your original version of the page, and then the thing that we're changing for the variant, the thing you're changing about the website, is going to be only living in Optimize, but it'll be served out to half of your visitors or however many you decide to serve it out to. So you kind of control it within the Optimize platform.
Hi, I'm back here. I'm Sam from Carnegie Hall. I'm curious about any best practices for defining a measurement model in a tool like Google Tag Manager for custom events especially.
Thank you for mentioning Google Tag Manager, because I was supposed to say something about it. Thank you very much. So Google Tag Manager, you probably didn't see mentioned at all really in the slides, but that's because we literally use it for everything. So for those that aren't aware, Google Tag Manager is a tag management platform, just like what it sounds like. It's a way for us to take all of the individual pieces of tracking that you have on your website that may right now or previously have been kind of hard-coded on the website and the back end. It allows you to take all of that off of the website itself and kind of have control of it through a website interface. Google Tag Manager is relatively user-friendly. It's just a website that you could go to. So it really depends what you're trying to do. You could do lots of different things in Google Tag Manager. You can deploy your Facebook tracking, Google Ads tracking. You could build some of that click tracking for Google Analytics that we looked at. So I would say start by thinking about what type of tracking you want to be doing or what you're currently doing on the back end of your website and make a list of it so that you could go into Google Tag Manager with a plan. It's really helpful to go in there kind of knowing what you're after.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm from the Museum of Arts and Design, and I know that this is largely an audience of performing arts marketers, but I'm curious to know what practices in terms of evaluating website, users' journey through a website, you recommend to museums, because obviously our visitors aren't necessarily being driven to buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets. That's just not. We're trying to bring them to that, of course, but we're not as, I think, but this, it's not the immediacy of a performance that if I don't buy this ticket,
Right.
it's going to end.
Yeah. Do you
We're just there.
Do you sell general admission on your website? Or?
Yes, we do.
You do. Okay. So I would say that like that could be one goal, but I see your point in that that might not be the primary goal. And that's why I said that like you should think about what your goals are for your website. It is often going to be different for a museum than a performing arts organization. For many museums, we look at things like how they're interacting with the visit page. So oftentimes museum visitors, maybe not as many are buying on the website as we might see for a performing arts organization. So looking at things like visit metrics, if you have a visit section on your website, look at how many people are going there, and what are they doing on that section? What sort of information are they looking at? Are you giving them all the information they need? Are they looking for hours, parking? Are you giving them all of that sort of information? And then you could also be looking at things like your collection. It kind of just depends on what your goals are. So. Yeah, can you take the mic? I actually can't hear you very well.
I want to say like our goals are the same. It's revenue and gate. And so we have a visit page, of course. Most museums do, I hope. But what I'm asking, I guess, is a little bit more sort of a qualitative sense, or capacity's take on, okay, it's a different challenge because the behavior of how you interact with a museum is so different from the way you interact with a theater or a dance hall or a concert hall.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think. Wait. Can you take the mic again? I'm sorry.
Maybe that's not where your wheelhouse is, but I was just curious if this must come up with your museum clients of, okay, how do we really maximize this website to drive attendance?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it's the same. If revenue is your goal, and that's great if it is, then you should be focusing on that. You should be looking at the same thing as performing arts organizations as well. It'll be a little bit different. Like you might not see the same type of drop-off because you don't have like a seat selection and things like that, but you still have people walking through that process. So it's the same mindset of walking through how are people getting to the site, who are they, what are they looking at when they get here, and what are they struggling with along the way.
Hi.
Hi.
Mike from the Boston Symphony. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I'm only kind of adding to what you're saying, but I think when you meet with your individual departments and talk to them and just ask them what kind of data they're looking for, because as time goes on, we get lost and think, okay, well, the end goal, everyone's going to say revenue. We want revenue. We want donations. We want revenue. But we have to define, kind of micro goals. What are those? What do we want people to do on these pages? If it comes to media, we can track media just by putting event tracking around a play button, a pause button, seeing where they're stopping, where they're interacting, and then go back to your media department, deliver those reports. It might not convert something to revenue in that one session, but it's just keeping that mindset that you just said, which is like analytics-driven culture. Go to a meeting every week, have a statistic that's website related, to just start to, I would say, educate the people that are around you so they know what's going on. Because when you get to these, you could go years down the road and then you're just like, wait, this website is not performing, or these are the reasons why. But if that analytics culture was not there, you're not going to really make an impact. So
yeah, and it's a culture about curiosity, right? It's a culture about asking those questions and being curious about what people are doing. I think that in terms of kind of drilling down to what you should be looking at versus what you shouldn't, you are going to have to prioritize. So you could come up with as many questions as you want, but ultimately you might have to pick and choose what you spend your time looking into, and kind of setting your website objectives and KPIs can help you do that. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
And you can go down the rabbit hole, like you said. I mean,
yes.
Many people know that I get lost in the weeds because you go down that rabbit hole and there's so much to discover and find So you have to have that clear objective, and you have to have that question. And that gets back to maybe KPIs and knowing what it is that each, what the education department might want and is looking for. It might not be revenue driven, but it's other areas of tracking that you can do in page analysis. And getting back to that last point about just Tag Manager, if you have any hard-coded stuff, you have to get that off those pages and move those tags into Tag Manager, because once you can start to, at least for me, work in that way where it just frees up having to rely on a web developer to do most of your work.
Agreed. Big fans of Google Tag Manager. If you're not using it, definitely recommend it. And that PDF that we'll share at the end will have a webinar that you can watch on that as well. Anything else? Thank you all.